outside of this letter, did you have any other discussions, or did any member of the defense team have any other discussions with Mr. Nifong where this topic was discussed, that is, potential ethical issues relating to the pretrial statements that he was making?
Well, he didn't respond to us, you understand. So we personally didn't. He did not talk to us. So we didn't have any conversations additional to this on that particular topic. As to whether any other lawyers involved in the defense ever had any conversations with him about please stop saying what you're saying or anything along those lines, I don't really recall.
Well, right. All I'm asking, of course, is your personal knowledge of that.
Right.
Okay. And just for the record, 3.6c says, notwithstanding paragraph A, which deals generally with extrajudicial statements of lawyers involved in litigation, a lawyer may make a statement that a reasonable lawyer would believe is required to protect a client from the substantial undue prejudicial effect of recent publicity not initiated by the lawyer or the lawyer's client. A statement made pursuant to this paragraph shall be limited to such information as is reasonably necessary to mitigate the recent adverse publicity. Let me ask you this hypothetical. Do you know generally what statements are at issue in this proceeding?
Yes, sir.
If those statements had not been made, how would the defense team have conducted the defense differently than in fact it did?
Significantly differently. You mean how would we have engaged in our analysis about what we're entitled to say publicly?
Well, yes. I want you to focus on what you would have believed that you were entitled to say in the absence of the statements, comparing that with what you did say really throughout the litigation.
Well, I certainly believe that there was, because these statements had come from Mr. Nifong, we can respond under the rules to publicity that is not initiated by us, whether it's initiated by the press or Mr. Nifong or police or anything else it's not our fault that this has become a public issue. But what was different and what took this case out of the normal sort of pretrial publicity status is that Mr. Nifong had gone out and said, with all the authority that he had as the chief law enforcement officer of Durham County, a crime happened, a rape happened, these people are hooligans, they did it, they're either principals or they're aiders and abettors. It's one of the most horrible things I've ever seen happen in Durham. On and on. And at that point in time, really, I'm not sure there's anything that we could have said to effectively overcome that information coming from that man.
Well, my question, though, is what would you have done differently or not done if he had not made those statements?
Well, then what we would have done, certainly, is responded. And these comments were renewed. I mean, I've heard talk here that Mr. Nifong stopped speaking publicly on April 3rd or making public statements on April 3rd, and that's not true. And so, but be that as it may, even were it true, the narrative that he created with the authority that he created it, I mean, constantly, I read, saw on television, throughout the whole time, Mr. Nifong said there was evidence.
Answer my question, that is, what would you have done differently or not done had the statements not been made?
Our responses would have probably been more limited to whatever came up at the time and was initiated at the time and that we were responding to. But what happened is we saw this sort of pattern develop where this narrative had been set early on about the facts of the case. Then we got this discovery sort of trickled to us. And every time we got discovery, it proved that this didn't happen. And so the statements at the beginning, with such certainty, a crime happened and there is evidence of it, and I've seen evidence of it, was simply not borne out. And every time we got proof and evidence that it wasn't borne out, we did our best to make that truth known and to respond to the initial narrative that had been set by Mr. Nifong. Now, would we have done the same thing if, you know, Nancy Grace had been on her show every night saying these kids did it? I mean, you know, probably not, because who really cares about Nancy Grace? But it wasn't
Right,
just
she's not on court TV anymore, I understand.
She doesn't need to be anywhere.
All right, well, I got your answer there.